Sutra. A hell called quarreling, a hell called iron axe, and a hell called massive hatred. A star Bodhisattva said, Human one, within the iron ring are endless hells like that. There is also the hell of crying out, the hell of pulling tongues, the hell of dung and urine, the hell of copper logs, the hell of fire elephants, the hell of fire dogs, the hell of fire horses, the hell of fire oxen, the hell of fire mountains, the hell of fire ropes, the hell of fire beds, the hell of fire beams, the hell of fire eagles, the hell of sawing teeth, the hell of flaying skin, the hell of drinking blood, the hell of burning hands, the hell of burning feet, the hell of hanging hooks, the hell of fire rooms, the hell of iron cells, and the hell of fire wolves. Each of those hells contains lesser hells numbering from 1, 2, 3, 4 to hundreds of thousands. Each of those lesser hells has its own name. Commentary. A hell called quarreling, where many ghosts come and scold you all day long, criticizing you all the time. Why do people fall into this kind of hell? It is because they enjoy arguing with others, so they fall into this type of hell. There is also a hell called iron axe, where these axes chop off hell beings' heads. And there is also a hell called massive hatred. Everyone in this hell is very angry, so they hit each other and fight each other. Earth Star Bodhisattva said to Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, Human one, within the iron ring are endless hells like that, described above. So I have listed so many names to these hells. There is actually an infinite number of them. There is also the hell of crying out. There are 8 cold hells and 8 hot hells. The 4th hell out of the 8 cold hells is the hell of crying out, or the hell of loud crying out, where screaming and yelling occur constantly. The hell of pulling tongues, where people's tongues are pulled out in particular. The hell of dung and urine, where beings eat excrement when hungry and drink urine when thirsty. The hell of copper logs, where beings seem to be locked inside and cannot get out. The hell of fire elephants, the hell of fire dogs that emit smoke. The hell of fire horses, the horses are on fire. The hell of fire oxen, the hell of fire mountains. The hell of fire ropes that smash you and press you under. The hell of fire beds, the hell of fire beams, the hell of fire eagles that eat people's eyes and fly away. The hell of sawing teeth, the hell of flaying skin, the hell of drinking blood, the hell of burning hands, the hell of burning feet, the hell of hanging hooks, the hell of fire rooms that trap you inside, the hell of iron cells, and the hell of fire wolves. Each of those hells contains lesser hells numbering from 1, 2, 3, 4 to hundreds of thousands. There are larger hells and smaller hells. In each large hell, there may be 1, 2, 3, or 4 smaller hells, or hundreds of thousands. Each of those lesser hells has its own distinct name. Sutra. Earth Star Bodhisattva told Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, Human one, such are the karmic responses of beings in Jambudvipa who commit evil deeds. The power of karma is extremely great. It rivals Mount Sumeru in its height. It surpasses the great oceans in its depths. It obstructs the path leading to sagehood. For that reason, beings should never think that minor bad deeds are unimportant, or assume that they do not count as offenses. After death, there will be retributions to undergo that reflect on those details. Fathers and sons have the closest relationship, but their roads diverge and each must go his own way. Even if they met, neither would consent to undergo suffering in the other's place. Now, Based on the awesome spiritual power of the Buddha, I will describe some of the retributions for offenses that take place in the house. Please, human one, listen for a moment to what I am going to say. Universal Worthy replied, I have long known of the retributions that come about in the three evil paths. My hope in asking the human one to describe them is that when beings in the future Dharma ending age who are committing evil deeds hear the human one's descriptions, they will be moved to take refuge with the Buddha. Commentary. Star Bodhisattva told Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, human one and virtuous one, such are the karmic responses of beings in Southern Jambudvipa who commit evil deeds. The power of karma is extremely great. How great? It rivals the Mount Sumeru in its height. It surpasses the great oceans in its depths. It obstructs the path leading to sagehood. How come we do not yet fulfill our karma in the way in our cultivation? It is because we are obstructed by the power of our karma. That is why we cannot realize the holy way. For that reason, beings should never think that minor bad deeds are unimportant. Do not look lightly on minor acts and deeds of evil. Why? It is because numerous minor deeds of evil become great evil, or assume that they do not count as offenses. After death, there will be retributions to undergo that reflect on those details. Evil deeds as numerous as a hair or as tiny as dust particles will beget retribution. Fathers and sons have the closest relationship, but their roles diverge and each must go his own way. When it is time for the house, fathers refuse to suffer on behalf of their sons. Even filial sons refuse to suffer in their house for their parents. In this way, each takes his or her own path. Even if they met in their house, neither would consent to undergo suffering in the other's place. Why? Although they were father and son in the human realm, once they are in their house, they know that their relationship is a result of past karma. They may even have been enemies. This is why no one would be willing to substitute for someone else in the house. Now, based on the awesome spiritual power of the Buddha, I, Earth Bodhisattva says, will briefly and simply describe some of the retributions for offenses that take place in their house. Please, human one, listen for a moment to what I am going to say. So, Earth Bodhisattva, Universal Worthy replied, I have long known of the retributions that come about in the three evil paths. Whether you explain or not, I already know. However, no beings in the future do. My hope in asking the human one to describe them is that when beings in the future Dharma ending age who are committing evil deeds hear the human one's descriptions, they will be forewarned and cautious about not committing any evil. This is why I hope the human one will explain this to me. All beings will be moved to take refuge with the Buddha, part of the Triple Jewel and Buddhism. Sutra. Earth Star said, human one, this is what happens during retributions in their house. Offenders may go to a hell in which their tongues are stretched out and plowed through by cattle, or to a hell in which their hearts are pulled out and eaten by yakshas, also a hell in which their bodies are cooked in cauldrons of boiling oil, also a hell in which they are forced to embrace red-hot copper pillars, also a hell in which they are burned by a fire that constantly pursues them, also a hell in which cold and ice are all pervasive, also a hell in which excrement and urine are endless, also a hell in which flying mazes are unavoidable, also a hell in which fiery spears stab them repeatedly, also a hell in which they are constantly beaten on the chests and backs, also a hell in which their hands and feet are burned, also a hell in which they are bound by iron snakes that coil around them, also a hell in which they are pursued by racing iron dogs, also a hell in which their bodies are stretched stormed by iron moons. Commentary. Of Star said, the universal worthy Bodhisattva, human one, this is what happens during retributions in the hells, as described in the above and in the following. Either way, offenders may go to a hell in which their tongues are stretched out and plowed through by cattle. The tongues of those who like to exaggerate, scold others, and lie will be hooked and stretched out. Ocean. Pulling plows will plow their tongues. Or to a kind of hell in which their hearts are pulled out and eaten by yakshas, such as bold ghosts and speedy ghosts. Also a hell in which their bodies are cooked in cauldrons of boiling oil. Offenders are cooked alive in these pots. Also a hell in which they are forced to embrace red-hot copper pillars. Also a hell in which they are burned by various types of fire, a fire that constantly pursues them. Also a hell in which cold and ice are all pervasive. Also a hell in which excrement and urine are illegal. Also a hell in which flying mazes are unavoidable. What are mazes? Mazes are shaped like apples or lemons, but they have thorns or needles around them. These things may be in the ground or come from the air. Although they are metal, they can fly and pierce you in the head, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, or anywhere. In fact, they hit you where you hurt. Or so a hell in which fiery spears red hot from a fire stab a hole in them repeatedly. They open up a road and burn a hole in your body, so it is good for ventilation. Also a hell in which they are constantly beaten on the chests and backs. Also a hell in which their hands and feet are burned. Also a hell in which they are bound by iron snakes that coil around them and burn them. The iron snakes in the hell are a type of insect that spit out smaller snakes. These iron snakes have not just one mouth, but mouths all over their bodies. Each mouth can spit out a small insect or snake. Each small snake has 12 iron mouths that squirm from the offenders' eyes into their bodies, then exist from the genitalia. Their bites are so painful that they are impossible to bear. Why do hell beings face this type of retribution? It is because these beings enjoy the lust, and when they are alive, they overindulged in sexual desire. Women like men and men like women. They set no limit for themselves, hence they face a type of retribution of falling into the hells in the future. This is extremely dangerous. So a hell in which they are pursued by racing iron dogs, or also a hell in which their bodies are stretched, stomped by iron moons, about the same size as horses and slightly larger than a ass. Sutra. Human one to inflict these retributions in each hell. Hundreds of thousands of instruments made of copper, iron, stone, or fire arise from karmic forces. Those four materials come into being in response to the kinds of karma that offenders create. If I were to explain in detail what happens during retributions in the hells, then I would need to tell of the hundreds of thousands of sufferings that must be undergone in each specific hell. How much more would that be the case for the sufferings in all the many hells? Now, having based myself upon the awesome spiritual power of the Buddha, I have been given a mental a general answer to the human one's question, for if I were to speak in detail, it would take eons. Commentary. A Bodhisattva called out again, human one, to inflict these retributions in each hell, as I so explained above. Hundreds of thousands of instruments made of copper, iron, stone, or fire arise from karmic offenses. Do these copper, iron, stone, or fire really exist? No. Why? Those four materials come into being in response to the kinds of karma that offenders create. Living beings face the retribution to whatever causes they create. The karma you create manifests this type of retribution. Hells of copper appear when you create karma by which you deserve to be punished by copper implements. Hells from iron appear when you create karma by which you deserve to be punished by iron employments. The same applies to stone and fire. If I were to explain in detail what happens during retributions in the hells, then I would need to tell of the hundreds of thousands of sufferings that must be undergone in each specific hell. There is not just one type of suffering in one hell, but hundreds of thousands of sufferings. How much more would that be the case for the sufferings in all the many hells? Now, having based myself upon the awesome spiritual power of the Buddha, I, a Bodhisattva says, have given a general answer like the brief and simple one above to the human one's question, for if I were to speak in detail, it would take several great eons, and I would still not finish.